Welcome to Artwright's Place, story time. We are going to sit back, we're going to carry on with the story of The Ballad of a Sad Calf, written by Carson McCullers. Sit back, turn your screen off if you like, and listen to the story. The man was a stranger, and it is rare that a stranger enters the town on foot at that hour. Besides, the man was a hunchback. He was scarcely more than 4 feet tall, and he wore a ragged, rusty coat that reached only to his knees. His crooked little legs seemed too thin to carry the weight of his great warped chest and the hump that sat on his shoulders. He had a very large head, with deep-set blue eyes and a sharp little mouth. His face was both soft and sassy. At the moment, his pale skin was yellowed by dust, and there were lavender shadows beneath his eyes. He carried a lopsided old suitcase, which was tied with a rope.
"Evening,"
said the hunchback, and he was out of breath. Miss Amelia and the men on the porch neither answered his greeting nor spoke. They only looked at him. "I'm hunting for Miss Amelia Evans." Miss Amelia pushed back her hair from her forehead and raised her chin.
"How come?" "'Cause I am kin to her,"
the hunchback said. The twins and Stumpy McPhail looked up at Miss Amelia. "That's me," she said. "How do you mean, kin?"
"Because,"
the hunchback began. He looked uneasy, almost as though he was about to cry. He rested the suitcase on the bottom step, but did not take his hand from the handle.
"My mother left Fanny Jessup, and she come from Cheehaw. She left Cheehaw some 30 years ago, when she married her first husband. I remember hearing her tell how she had a half-sister named Martha, and back in Cheehaw today, they tell me that was your mother."
Miss Amelia listened with her head turned slightly aside. She ate her Sunday dinners by herself. Her place was never crowded with a flock of relatives, and she claimed kin with no one. She had a great aunt who owned the livery stable in Cheehaw, but that aunt was now dead. Aside from her, there was only one double first cousin who lived in a town 20 miles away. But this cousin and Miss Amelia did not get on so well. And when they chanced to pass each other, they spat on the side of the road. Other people had tried very hard from time to time to work out some kind of far-fetched connection with Miss Amelia, but with absolutely no success. The hunchback went into a long rigmarole, mentioning names and places that were unknown to the listeners on the porch and seemed to have nothing to do with the subject.
"So, Fanny and Martha Jessup were half-sisters, and I'm the son of Fanny's third husband. So that would make you and I."
He bent down and began to unfasten his suitcase. His hands were like dirty sparrow claws, and they were trembling. The bag was full of all manner of junk, ragged clothes and odd rubbish that looked like parts out of a sewing machine, or something just as worthless. The hunchback scrambled among these belongings and brought out an old photograph.
This is a picture of my mother and her half-sister.
Miss Amelia did not speak. She was moving her jaw slowly from side to side, and you could tell from her face what she was thinking about. Stumpy McPhail took the photograph and held it out towards the light. It was a picture of two pale, withered-up little children of about 2 and 3 years of age. The faces were tiny white blurs, and it might have been an old picture in anyone's album. Stumpy McPhail handed it back with no comment.
Where are you coming from? He asked. The hunchback's voice was uncertain. I was travelling. Still Miss Amelia did not speak. She just stood, leaning against the side of the door, and looked down at the hunchback. Henry Macy winked nervously and rubbed his hands together. Then quietly he left the bottom step and disappeared. He is a good soul, and the hunchback's situation had touched his heart. Therefore he did not want to wait and watch Miss Amelia chase this newcomer off her property and run him out of town. The hunchback stood with his bag open on the bottom step. He sniffled his nose and his mouth quivered. Perhaps he began to feel his dismal predicament.
Maybe he realized what a miserable thing it was to be a stranger in the town, with a suitcase full of junk, and claiming kin with Miss Amelia. At any rate, he sat down on the steps and suddenly began to cry. Well, that wasn't a story about the Planet of the Apes. And it's not finished. Sorry about the delay in updating the next installment, but I've just been waiting to let people see the website. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed that, and keep checking in Artwright's Place. We're going to keep reading our way through. See ya.